focusing on capacity development for creatives and strengthening their ecosystem. We can bring in today experiences from 6 different countries, 3 from Africa, such as South Africa, Senegal, and Kenya, and 3 from the Middle East, such as Lebanon, Iraq, and Jordan. And our program is also collaborating with the Goethe Institute. During the project phase, this is continuing until 2023, we gathered quite a lot of findings and examples how to support creatives. After our pilot phase, we decided to focus on 4 main subsectors, for instance, as they seem to be most promising for the countries we are working in. And these 4 sectors are the animation industry, the design, also including the digital design like web design, UX, UI design, the music sector, as well as the fashion sector. And well, the lessons we can share with you from our CCI program is, and I think we can underpin this, what you already know and what Nicola painted out, that the creative industries have a high economic growth potential and are predestined for generating employment for the youth. And in combination with digitalization, particularly cultural and creative professionals are the ones who can be a trailblazer of tomorrow's work environment. Creative minds, in addition, are needed to prepare economies for the world of tomorrow and to create innovative solutions also for other industries. They develop in our program also new products and business models or tapping in new fields such as animation and gaming. They can also contribute to employment that needs in the future. For example, until 2050, it is predicted that more than 1 billion people from the global south will reach working age. So we need to create also jobs in new areas, and this is huge potential also for the creative industries to create these kind of jobs. In South Africa, for instance, one animation film is considered to employ 300 to 500 people for 5 years, including the value chain of animation filmmaking. It is a booster as it can be used for a lot of other sectors, for training or education purpose. And we also see a high potential for women in the creative sector, as women occupied 48% of jobs in culture and entertainment, according to UNESCO, and the sector is considered particularly inclusive. So these are the same information we have also for our 6 countries we are working in. But we recognized also a lot of missing links to help to boost this sector. And one missing link is the knowledge and recognition of the sector at all, especially in our 6 countries. And so we need data, standards, norms, also within countries or regions. For substantial subsectors even to identify this huge potential. In South Africa, for instance, the animation sector is still untapped and there are no specific animation strategies or incentives in place. So I would like to congratulate Asian Strategic Plan for Culture and Arts. So I would like to congratulate these countries who already are working in installing this kind of strategies. A lot of creatives are unfortunately still too weak in terms to present themselves as a powerful industry sector. They are often freelancers, as you know, and in addition working often in the informality or being just very small SMEs. And so we have seen a lot of needs in qualification, especially in terms of entrepreneurial competences. There is also not sufficient coordinating along the sector. So the enabling environment for creatives in the countries is so important, but there is no coherent strategy at the political level, nationwide or regionally, to ensure that funding support, adequate training, or structural market access, including mechanisms for copyright protection or even social protection, is in place. Especially the respect of fundamental rights for creatives is important in this time of the digital revolution, where new market mechanisms are emerging, and therefore great attention must be paid to protect also decent jobs in the digital creative sector, as well as against unequal marketing conditions. So our program at the moment is focusing on training and building up an enabling environment. We are strengthening the entrepreneurial capacities, and we can underpin that this is leading to an increased sales, investment in business, and creation of new jobs for creatives, as we made a tracer study with all our participants in the training programs. Also, the resilience focus is important as we are building up digital competences, and that will lead to a better access to market. So 94% of the creatives trained were satisfied, and around 66 of creatives already confirmed that their income and employment situation, as well as their perspectives, have increased. Combination of the individuals with organizational capacity development is key for the sustainable implementation. For example, we are right now strengthening the Animation Association in South Africa to lobby for the sector, as I informed you that at the moment the sector is underrepresented. But what is still necessary is, again, the recognition of the creative sector on governmental level. So I will stop for now. I think, Nicola, you also have prepared a lot of other questions to other panels, and I would like to thank you so far, and would be pleased to bring in our experiences furthermore. Thank you so much.
Indonesia. Thank you, Nicholas. I hope you all can hear me now. Great. Same here. Thanks, Nicholas. Thanks, Dean Sonobe, ADBI, the organizers. Thank you very much for inviting me. I think this volume particularly could not have come at a more relevant time. I think Nicholas was mentioning at the beginning that it's a feast of events that are lined up for the rest of the year. There is WCC, there is ICC, and there's the G20 summit. But for India, I think this volume is very, very crucial. This is very, very important as it looks to assume the presidency in just a few months from now. In December, India will assume presidency, but along with that, the troika will be formed by the three developing or the emerging economies. And that is very important because that's where the creative economy really will play a crucial role, because it can be a great vehicle to the 2030 agenda. And the 2030 agenda, as we want to be very much there in the G20 agenda for the next various presidencies, at least till 2030. So I'll talk about India's creative economy, and then I'll move to, we are working in partnership with ADBI on G20. And creative economy is one very important aspect of that research program. And I'll talk about. I'll try to give a snapshot of a few findings. We've recently completed this study that we've done in partnership with ADBI, and I'll come to that. But before that, let me give you a snapshot of what India's creative economy really looks like. In India, communities have long been the vanguard of the creative economy, whether you talk about the handicrafts, tourism, architecture, media and entertainment, and rich literature have all have a lasting legacy across centuries in India and across the regions in India. It's a huge country, and these are the spatial concentration of these different industries. One of India's largest cultural exports, as many of you would be aware, is Bollywood, having a huge demand globally. Yoga is another area. You have International Yoga Day that is celebrated now throughout the world, but the inception is essentially from India, and which is gradually enhancing its global appeal. There's a great opportunity for India to blend innovation with traditional practices and tap into the rising global market for wellness that is worth $4.5 trillion. The increasing demand for wellness and spirituality, Ayurvedic medicines, as many of you would be aware, has also made India a leading destination for experiential tourism in this domain. Millions of travelers spend ample time in wellness retreats across the country. India is also home to the sixth largest number of UNESCO sites, UNESCO heritage sites, and varied natural landscapes imbued with versatile cultural traditions. Also being the fastest growing large economy and a rising IT hub, paves the way for India to harness its culture as an asset and expand its global footprint. Talking about, I was talking about the partnership with ADBI and the study that we have done in partnership with ADBI. So the study basically, provides one of the first estimates of India's creative economy. As many of us are aware that the problem of working with creative economy is the huge informal sector that it comes with, the data problem and the other. So our main objective was to come out with some first estimates of India's creative economy, its contribution in the country's overall employment and towards women and youth employment, covering both the organized as well as the huge unorganized sector, which is often ignored in many of these studies. So this will be the first study to incorporate the contribution of both the organized and the unorganized sector by using the micro data, which is the periodic labor force survey data. People working on India must be aware of it. So what we find, this is for the years 2017-18 to till 2020, so essentially before the pandemic. So it is found that India's creative economy on an average accounts for about 8.3% of total employment and around 20% or just more than 20% of total GVA through these years. The creative workforce in India is also found to be more urban-centric, younger, and less gender biased, which is very important because, with the falling female labor force participation rate in India, The creative economy then serves as a great platform for the women to put a mark in the workforce. The creative workforce also enjoys a favorable 94% wage differential, which is very important compared to the non-creative workforce. In terms of spatial concentration, I was talking about at the beginning, the regional concentration, the top 5 creative districts that we find are Tirupur, which is famous for textiles, wearing apparel, Mumbai, which is of course famous for Bollywood. Then you have Bangalore, which is famous for all those IT, software, animation related industries. New Delhi, which is famous for research and education institutes, and Gurgaon again for research. So these were the top 5 districts that we found were the 5 creative centers in India. Now, as Nicholas mentioned at the beginning, and I'll just touch upon why it is important for India as it assumes G20 presidency. But before that, let me just talk a little bit about what India can really do. How this can serve as a great opportunity for India to take the lead in driving policy reforms in the sector at a global level. These reforms, they can actually include achieving consensus at the G20, and these are just broad suggestions that India could actually think of taking up when it talks about when it takes up creative economy as one of the agenda items. Achieving consensus at the G20 on an internationally acceptable, uniform definition of the creative economy and its constituents is very important. Further establishing an inter-country network like the ICCN or the WCC to promote the cultural and creative sectors that can improve information dissemination, training, market access, knowledge management, policy formulation and research in the sector could be very important. Creating a digital platform for creative and cultural workers to increase their visibility. Providing mobility grants to artists. We talked about the huge informal sector, creative workers across these G20 countries to present their work to new audience and experience diverse cultural exchanges. Integrating culture with the UN's 2030 agenda for sustainable development can and be another recommendation. So I'll end with this and I'll talk more in the next rounds. Over to you, Nicholas. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Nicola. Because listening to all these great panelists, I just want to underpin that the launch of the book is really relevant and is really needed from today, because with the world in a kind of changing modus, we think that deriving from creative sector, there could be also a lot of opportunities for solutions. So we think the book is really focusing on what you already said, a strong momentum for the sector with regards to research and data collection, capacity building, and especially positioning. So I think it is important that the sector is visible, so that on a kind of political strategic approach, it is as visible to do the financing, the research, and so on, to implement a robust ecosystem in order to support the sector. But this ecosystem, what you already said, is so important to be decent, to be sustainable, to secure intellectual property rights, a social security system, etc. And we have learned from the COVID and pandemic situation that the sector is really weak, but also has a great power to recover, especially when it comes to digital competences. So for us, and as a German representative, we think that this book is very important, and also the expectations for the VCCE conference is also very high. So we would really like that this sector will have a great recognition on the G20 political level, that we can build really strong networks. Networking is a lot about mutual learning and exchange, but also to bring in innovation to happen, that we have a focus on the women economic empowerment for the creative sector, but also a sector, I think, that can contribute as a solution maker to the challenges of the future. And so I think this book is very important as a kind of bridge for the BCCE conference, but also maybe Pratik, what you said for India, when you are taking over. And these are some comments I just would like to add, because I think we are running out of time, and I will stop now to give also the other panelists the room.
Yes, thank you, Nicolas. Can you hear me? Thank you very much, Nicolas. Can you hear me? Excellent, great. Okay, great. Thank you very much. So good afternoon, everyone. First of all, congratulations for ADBI for launching this very timely and interesting publication on the creative economy. And thank you very much for inviting UNFED to this discussion. So as mentioned, I work on the Trade and Creative Economy program of UNFED in Geneva. The program supports developing countries in enhancing knowledge and understanding of the creative economy and its contribution to sustainable development and international trade. We also assist countries in consensus building and increasing capacity policies targeting the creative industries. At the moment, we are working with Angola on a creative economy mapping project. And we also collect and analyze data on international trade in creative goods and services. As you all know, creative goods and trade in creative goods and services provides an increasing export revenue for most countries. We are very happy to share with you that we will launch our updated trade database together with the UNCTAD Creative Economy Outlook 2022 in early October at the World Congress on Creative Economy in Bali, Indonesia. This event has been mentioned a few times. So as mentioned by previous speakers, the world faces a major cost of living crisis built upon a fragile and uneven recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic and worsened by the war in Ukraine, and against persistent environmental challenges and increasing digital divide. And although the creative industries are crucial sectors for achieving the 2030 agenda, the COVID-19 pandemic severely impacted some creative industries and highlighted their vulnerabilities. The ITU estimates that over a third of the world's population did not use the internet in 2021. And the majority of the digitally deprived are women and girls. Only 39% of rural households have access to the internet. All these facts are very important because women, girls, and rural communities should be torchbearers for the evolving creative economy. The upcoming UNCTAD Creative Economy Outlook confirms many of the findings discussed also in the book. Cultural and creative industries significantly contribute to the world economy. We estimate that in 2020, creative goods represented 3% of global merchandise exports, and creative services made up 21% of total services exports. This shows, of course, the importance of the sector for economies. So how countries can develop and transform their creative industries to maximize gains from a trade and development perspective? First, education systems must equip people with the right digital competencies and entrepreneurial skills. Education must be inclusive for women, populations of all ages, and rural urban areas. Second, countries have to overcome barriers to digital development. Physical infrastructure and regulatory barriers hold back the development of a thriving and digitally enabled creative economy. Finally, a thriving creative economy also needs an enabling policy environment, from financial incentives through access to financial services to an efficient copyright regime that balances the protection of copyrights and the right of access to culture and creative products and services. Many of you mentioned the question of data and measurement. The lack of harmonized definitions and comparable statistics indeed makes estimating the full weight of the creative economy difficult. So UNTAD is currently involved in two groups to facilitate further discussions on defining and measuring the creative economy. Together with the UNESCO, we are co-leading a group for the clarification of cultural products resulting from creative industries as part of the task team on the international trade statistics. And we also created an informal working group on creative economy, bringing together experts from developed and developing countries, including Indonesia, for example, to discuss evolving issues around the creative economy. This working group aims to review and potentially create a new working definition of the creative economy and creative industries for UNTAD. So thank you very much again for inviting us, and thank you for all the panelists for these very insightful contributions. I'm gonna stop here now. So Nicolas, the floor is back to you.
it is still, we are still in the process of both understanding the creative economy is evolving given the dynamics, and also the context of it needs also involving the local level if it is not quite feasible, and it is not quite relevant as well if the national level for the uniform policy itself. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Kaori. Maybe it is time to introduce our two last speakers of today.
Yes, nice time. But as one of the audience, that I learned a lot about this potential of this promising sector and the needs for it. So, and I'd like to hear more from them. But unfortunately, we need to close the session because the room won't be available otherwise. So now I'd like to introduce two closing remark speakers here. And so first, I'd like to introduce Jonathan Tan, who so kindly waited patiently to speak for this occasion. So he heads the Culture and Information Division at the ASEAN Secretariat in Jakarta. And in his role, he coordinates regional cooperation in arts and culture, as well as the information and media sector. And of course, he is one of the co-editors of this book. So Jonathan, so thank you so much for your patience, and if you could please join and then deliver your remarks. Jonathan?
Thank you very much. Are you able to hear me?
Yes,
well?
Loud and clear.
Okay, that's very good. So a very good afternoon to all of you who are joining us both online and physically. And first of all, I would like to also extend my greetings to ADBI Dean, Mr. Sonobe, as well as the panelists and Nicholas, Nella, and Tita. It's good to see you all again. It's my privilege to say a few closing words at today's book launch. First of all, if I may just again take the opportunity to thank ADBI and the partners in collaborating with the ASEAN Secretariat on this publication. We have 22 research papers written by 52 authors, and this publication offers insights and perspectives of practitioners and academics who lend their thought leadership from multiple angles, spanning economics, public policy, culture, gender to information technology on the way forward to promote and develop the creative economy. I think this publication is certainly very timely for us at ASEAN as we move towards trying to consolidate efforts to promote and develop the ASEAN creative economy. We here at ASEAN see the creative economy as a sector that requires assistance for post-pandemic recovery, and at the same time as an enabler that would assist in the post-pandemic recovery in the region. And this is why the development of the creative economy is identified as one of the key drivers in our ASEAN Comprehensive Recovery Framework that we have put in place. Last year, ASEAN officials got together to develop an overarching definition on ASEAN creative economy. So we see the creative economy as an added value, and that it rests on human creativity coming from various aspects, including heritage, culture, the arts, design, science, technology, and innovation. During our discussion, we actually went a step further to underscore its critical role to promote sustainable and inclusive development through job, wealth, and value creation. And we identify activities that include the entire value chain of production, consumption, and distribution. And these are backed importantly by trade of intangible assets, such as IPR, and tangible assets, such as goods and services. I listened intently to the panel discussions which earlier on, which has further enriched our ongoing discussions that speaks to the opportunities and challenges in the creative economy. If I may just also take this opportunity as the closing remark to offer 3 points which may be useful to consider as we continue the discussions on ways to promote and develop the creative economy. So firstly, the creative economy can benefit from a culture-centric role. A point I think is also aptly echoed by Indonesia's presidency of G20 culture, where it advocates the central role of culture in the promotion of sustainable living. Adopting a culture-centric role may better provide the space for the growth of a more social, ecological awakenings and sustainability agenda. It is therefore important to nurture the creative sector based on a sustainable developmental model that is not solely oriented to quantitative growth, but one that takes into consideration of the means to elevate the quality of livelihoods and lives. It is therefore useful if we could also consider paying attention to the environmental, social, and governance, or ESG aspects for the creative economy. Doing so may also align with the ESG that is identified as a key component of the Great Reset initiative that the World Economic Forum articulated last year. Second, the creative jobs of tomorrow could play a crucial role toward building a new social contract that empowers individuals to reset and reimagine a brave new world. Owing to the creative and curative benefits of the creative economy, it speaks to the greater realization of individuality and fulfillment of our intellectual and emotional existence. This may explain why the creative sector is appealing to the youth, where more young people between the age of 15 and 29 years of work in this sector as compared with other sectors. Lastly, capacity building and skills upgrading are critical backbone of a sustainable creative economy. While there has been a general preference for STEM, as in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics degrees since the early 2000s, we are now also seeing efforts to mainstream STEAM, science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics that focus on a more multidisciplinary and creative approach to education systems. I think this development needs to be encouraged if we are to have a sustainable pipeline of creative workers for the creative economy. This year, the G20 culture under the Indonesian presidency is expected to discuss the central role of culture in sustainable living. This discussion built on Indonesia's earlier achievements of being the sponsor or main sponsor of designating 2019 as the International Year of Creative Economy for Sustainable Development. It is useful to note that Indonesia underscores the strategic value of the creative economy, not only in terms of economic growth, but the role it plays to promote sustained and inclusive development. I think this is also echoed by the G20 Rome Declaration of the G20 Culture Ministers last year, which recognized that the cultural and creative sectors as drivers for regeneration and sustainable and balanced growth. I would like to conclude by saying that as we rethink and reimagine the future of work for the creative economy, it is critical to ensure the orientation is inclusive and people-centric. And the discussion on the promotion and development of the creative economy amplified the creative and curative role that it plays in and for sustainable development. So with this, allow me once again to congratulate the ADBI, our various partners and contributors for making this publication possible. Thank you very much for your attention.
Jonathan, we sincerely appreciate your compact yet insightful comments. Now, I'd like to invite, actually, I'm delighted to now invite Nera Hendrietti, who is Director of Bilateral and Regional Policy at Finance Ministry, Indonesia. I believe it's not a mistake to say this book exists because of Nera and her belief in the potentials of this sector. I also feel proud to say Nera worked with us at ADBI only until last year, and we still miss you. Nera, so floor is yours. Actually, T20 host kindly allowed us to stay on a little bit, so please.
Yeah, thank you, Kaori, and good afternoon, everyone. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. May peace and prosperity be upon us all. Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya. So let me begin my remark by thanking T20 Indonesia to hold this event in this beautiful place in Bali, and to Asian Development Bank Institute, ADBI, Dean Sonobe and Kauri, Asean Secretariat, Institute for Economic and Social Research, Faculty of Economic and Business, University of Indonesia, LPM, ICREER, British Council, and contributors, all the contributors of the book. It is such a great honor for me to manage the production of this book in my previous role as a senior capacity building and training economist in ADBI. And I thank to my colleagues Rizaldi Akbar, Nicholas Busher, David Hendrickson, and Kauri Hitomi to keep the production going, and especially for Nicholas to keep this topic floating and alive. I heard that you plan to create another production of the book. It was such a wonderful experience to be part of this collaboration with Dean Sonobe, Didi Baik, Nicholas, Jonathan, and Erika, and Pratik, and all the contributors in the editorial book. So, as we discussed last year, that creative economy has contributed significantly into global export and GDP, especially within the G20 countries. I think that's the idea when we come up with the do the call for paper for this topic. We found this topic is quite significant to our economy. This is reflected in the fact that among the world's top 10 exporters of creative goods, 7 are part of the G20, with China being the largest exporter, followed by United States, France, as seen in the in the G20 nations such as China, France, India, Italy, and Turkey, and the United Kingdom, creative goods account for over 5% of their total country exports. So while the G20 on the one hand contributes significantly toward the growth of creative sector globally, the sector itself play a key role in the economic growth for various G20 nations. So in the government perspectives, since this COVID-19 pandemic, the government has been trying to maintain economic stability and consumption. This creative industry, through its digitalization and SME involvements, have been one of the buffer to our economy. This economy creates positive multiplier effect in terms of output, global gross value added, income, and labors. Actually, I'm using all this story from the chapter of the book. So through T20 Indonesia, Global Creative Economy Forum, and even in the regional forum like such as ASEAN, and then Ibu Mutita also mentioned previously many international forum, we discussed that how to develop this creative economy to be more professional, and the players can be more resilient with economic shocks. And Ibu Riatu also mentioned that this creative economy also need to involve many types of stakeholders, and there's no one policy fits all. So the coordination and policy dialogues are very important. That is where the book is important to initiate the discussion. And also, I also note that Ibu Riatu also mentioned about the important about the data. So then we also find like what the critical points that how to improve, to develop, to make the creative economy better. So, ladies and gentlemen, I believe that all of you have well done through panel, going through all the panel discussion today. And then it is my great pleasure that you had a fruitful discussion. I heard that from the Ibu Tita brief that you with all the initiative for creative economy, and we have Angelica and Katalin explain about many international collaboration for this creative economy. So I just like to brief you a little bit about what we have in the ASEAN next year. And I believe Jonathan explained to you very, completely, very comprehensive about ASEAN, because he, as you know, in the ASEAN, creative economy is under social culture pillar, while I'm actually handle in my current work, I handle ASEAN in the economic pillar. So I can just tell you a little bit about the pillar economy, what the relation with the creative economy. So as you know, Indonesia will be the chairmanship for the ASEAN next year. So in the under economic pillar, we prepare 16 priority economic deliverables in the economic pillar. And we have 2 flagship events. And one of the flagship events is ASEAN Creative Economy Business Forum. So why we have this Creative Economy Business Forum under the economic pillar? Because we think that business aspect of the creative economy will help in the industry to grow. So we have one event under this economic pillar. So I think that's how we see in the ASEAN the many aspects that how to make this sector to be resilient, to be like commercially profitable for the players to develop. So I think we should keep our effort to develop this sector. So finally, I would like to express my appreciation to all contributors. This book has been a milestone for our effort to advance this creative economy. I enjoy our discussion through our webinars and our communication through emails when we synchronized all the chapters last year. So from our discussion, I believe there are still a lot of to be done and a room to improve for this industry. I stop here. Thank you very much. Back to you, Kaori.
Nela, thank you. I'm so glad we are doing this again. Yes, so thank you, Jonathan, Nela, for your closing this book launch with your blessing to this book. And also because Nela pretty much gave all the appreciation to all the sort of who gave life to this book and probably give more life to another book or more production to come. And also, once again, some of the names which may not have been mentioned but worked very hard for the book launch. So on behalf of ADBI, we would like to express our gratitude and appreciation. And also, we would like to express our sincerest appreciation for online audience who joined this event among so many that you could choose from during this T20 summit. And also, if I may remind you that you can download the book for free from ADBI website. If you cannot find ADBI website, all you need to do is you just Google ADBI, and then you will find it. So with that, I believe that we are closing the session. And thank you so much once again, and bye-bye for now.
Thank you.